The reason we're talking about enterprise automation, not other kinds of automation, is because people pay you money to do enterprise automation. I do not have the clicker, dog. I cannot go forward. That's it. I'm done. Thank you. Dude. I was doing it wrong.
Maybe I was doing it wrong.
Well, somebody was. Okay, so
everything was going so well.
Right. Don't be kidding me. That's so sweet when you say it like that. Okay. Is this the red thing goes backwards? Sweet. I love this place. So this presentation is digested from approximately 35 years of my life in IT. Most of it is from the last 13 years because everything before that, I was a C developer or a Pascal developer or a Fortran developer or an assembly language developer. And frankly, most of that stuff is just prep work for becoming an enterprise developer. Anybody who tells you otherwise is simply wrong. Now, I'm going to be very opinionated. I'm going to shout a lot. I'm going to move around. I'm a very active person. But I don't like people. So I'm going to say a lot of really mean things, too. I'm going to talk about people, and they may be you, but don't feel bad about that because it's not personal, because I don't care about you. All I care about is that your problem gets solved. Now, I've been in about 21-ish places in the last 13 years or so. And of those, about a third of them were Fortune 1000 companies, fairly large. You know, they have what we call enterprise IT. So who am I? My name is Michael Alvis. I'm a senior consultant at Momentum SI. It's a boutique consultancy based out of Austin, Texas. I do not live in Austin. Don't ask me questions about Austin. I know nothing about it. I live in Birmingham. Momentum SI is a leading IT consultancy focusing on enterprise transformation. Took that straight off the website, by the way. What we do is we take enterprises who are not really cloudy, or not really automated, or not really managing things well, and we transform them into things that are. So this is our the URL for our website. Go visit us. This is me if you need to talk to me. If you have any questions about it, Momentum SI is hiring DevOps people. That's the entire spiel for me selling the company. So that's it. Right, so I said enterprise. Well, first of all, you're not going to be getting a good sense of what enterprise means out of my talk because nobody seems to really know what that really means. So I'm going to go with a couple little things that I'm going to define. You don't like my definition of enterprise? Well, get up here and make your own. So the first thing you think about when you think about enterprise is generally kind of slow, sluggish, tends to be inefficient, run by suits, pointy-haired bosses, poor guys that are beleaguered all the time. That's probably true. Here's a definition from Martin Fowler. Martin says, enterprise applications are about the display, manipulation, and storage of large amounts of often complex data, and the support or automation of business processes with that data. Now, what that really means is, we make money with our stuff. If you don't make money with your software, you're probably not really an enterprise shop. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you aren't really the subject of my talk. So, it's not entertainment. Although you might provide entertainment, you might even be entertained by what you do. It is not entertainment. Neither is it productivity. It's not Office, not Word, none of that crap. It's not about presentations. It's about making money. So software that costs money, generally lots of it, if it doesn't work properly. If your software works, you probably make money. If your software stops working, you probably don't. That's when people above you in the food chain tend to get a little nasty. So when that happens, you know for a fact you're probably in an enterprise shop. So who are you? Well, you are in our enterprise automation, not in web ops. Does everybody kind of know what the definition or the difference between those two things are? Good, because I don't. So ultimately speaking, in web ops, we assume that you have kind of a narrow focus. You're really fast. You're sort of, I don't know, maybe startup-y a little bit. You do a lot of web stuff, but you don't do a lot of back-end stuff. People can see what you do. The real world can look at your stuff on the web and go, oh my God, they make awesome crap. Enterprise companies? Probably not. It's all behind a firewall. Only people can see it are the people inside the company or their very, very highly valued customers. So the other thing about enterprise software is it tends to have a relatively slow system development life cycle. Now, I don't mean it has to be actually slow, although it probably is. Most of the time it's measured in years, not days, months, weeks. So it's really not necessarily a speedy kind of arrangement. It's probably not in the cloud. You might have an internal private cloud. There's a really good chance that your software is not deployed in the cloud. It might not even be virtual because that's some newfangled stuff and nobody wants to get involved in that. Who knows what it's going to be? It might be agile. It might sound like it's agile. You might have an agile-like process. You might have picked the parts of agile that you liked, but it's probably really just fragile. You've probably got some half-baked methodology that you're using. I mean, and by the way, I've done this. This is not me smashing people. This is pretty much the way the world works outside of the 20 miles or so from where we're sitting right now. All right? So you probably do an awful lot of brownfield development. When you talk about brownfield development, that means you have to deal with other people's crap in order to make your stuff work. And that's really not a lot of fun. So you might have process. You might have heavyweight process. You might have light process. You might have no process. You might have nothing in the world at all. Or you might have ISO 9000, 2001 that you have spent $11 bajillion putting in. And you like that stuff because your executives think it's awesome and it's making stuff happen for you. But really, honestly, you're probably not looking at the results of that. These processes are meant to be observed afterwards and made change, and you should make changes based on the results of those processes. If I'm an ISO company, I have to do all these metrics when I do the work. And then later on, I look at the metrics and I go, holy crap, it takes us 6 months to get to QA from development. We gotta fix that. You probably don't do that. You probably look and go, it takes us 6 months to do QA. And that's pretty much the way it works. So, so it might seem to you that I have a fairly negative view of enterprise development, and that's absolutely true. I do not. I specifically don't like enterprise software developers. Actively don't like them. And it's not personal. Once again, I don't care about you. If you're an enterprise software developer, or if you're an enterprise manager or a business analyst, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you do. If you're doing it wrong, you're hurting somebody. It might just be you. You shouldn't stop doing that. So, and ultimately speaking, you got to think about it like this. Psychiatrists don't hate crazy people. They don't. They look at them as a thing that like, oh, it's like, well, you have some non-neurotypicality, and we're going to try to move you toward neurotypicality so that people will be able to relate to you. Think about me in terms like that. I don't hate you because you're doing it wrong. I just want you to do it right. All right? So if you're an enterprise software guy or in a company or an IT shop or whatever, what are you looking for? So across the course of your life, you've always heard this. Cheap, fast, right, pick two, right? Everybody have not heard that story before? It's like the magic triangle of crap that you can get. Cheap, fast, right, pick two. You can have it cheap and fast, but you can't have it right. You can have it cheap and correct, but you can't have it fast, blah, blah, blah. It's like a little resource triangle, right? So if the cost goes down, then without affecting the revenue stream, then your profit might go up. Though that's what you're really looking for, right? So you want faster time to delivery. You want more reliable and or more correct pushes to delivery. Like you want promotions to be right. You don't want to have to go in the process of building code, because it took you months to do that, by the way. And you can push it out, and all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, we got to roll back to version 1.6 because it all got hosed up. Well, you're looking for that cycle to be less expensive. Human beings, especially people like me, that although we're not terribly expensive, are absolutely not free. So what we're trying to do at every level in the course of enterprise software delivery is we're trying to ease some of your pain. And what do you really get when you want all these things? Well, we all know what that means. So if you're trying to get the cheaper, faster, righter, smarter, better, stronger, faster kind of stuff, the chances are good you fail the first time every time. Who in here has ever worked in what they consider an enterprise software company and had a product that went to market the very first time exactly like you wanted it to? Really? All those people? Okay. By the way, if y'all can't see it at home, that number is 0. So who did it, and who considers itself an enterprise developer in here? You work in a bank or a healthcare concern or something along those lines. Anybody? Do I have the guts to raise their hands and make me mock you? No. See, 2 people. You guys, I know some of you are, right? I know it. I know some of you are. It's okay. That's all right. You're not listening to me. So what you're probably going to get is failure. What you're very likely to get is when you go to the little button, you're probably going to get partial success. Partial success is really an interesting idea in enterprise development because the interesting things happens is you get an eventual acquiescence to say that partial success is actually the real success. We have defined dark as the new light. And when you do that, you actually cause everybody to fall down just a little bit. just a tad. You make the world an eviler place. And so you get reduced happiness. That is ultimately what we're all looking for, is happiness. So who wants to be happy in the course of software development? Of course you do. If you don't want to be happy, then once again, let's go back to that psychiatrist thing and we'll see why we don't. But executives really want to be happy. Their bonuses very frequently depend on it. Now, mid-level managers, is anybody in here a mid-level manager? It's okay, I'm not going to make too much fun of you. Okay, so I know there's some more of you too. I wouldn't answer either, I swear. So if you want to be happy, the key players are going to be management, right? Let me kick something. So you're going to have like your C-level management guys, and you're going to have your mid-level management guys, and these guys are going to be like project managers or something like that. They're going to have a label, and they're going to have some kind of control over the people who do actual work. So ultimately speaking, in my opinion, for technology work, managers do absolutely no work. I will say that to anybody who feels like hearing it. It's not that what they do isn't valuable. It's just not IT work. It's management. It's different. Now, business analysts do real work. There are good ones and bad ones, and they do real work. Developers do real work. They do. So, I want it to go. Operations guys, they're a fairly beleaguered lot. Does anybody in here consider themselves an operations person? More people. Of course you are at your puppet camp, right? So, notice that up here in the list of people that I want to be happy, do you think anybody's missing? Anybody? Can you think of anybody who's missing? The users, right. The user, it doesn't matter, you don't even care if they want to be happy. If they're not happy, you don't have software. And remember, there's one important other group that might be missing here. Quality assurance is not in that list. They are a customer. If they are not able to do their job, your job does not work, period. If you can't deliver to QA, then either your process skips QA, which don't get me wrong, people do, or you have, you've blocked. Okay, so really, who gets to be happy? Honestly, nobody really gets to be happy. You just get this kind of weird sense of accomplishment somewhere along the way once you've redefined success. Now, some people might have a chance at it, right? You might get once you change your expectations properly, the idea of failure might solidify a couple of things in your head. You might say, especially in a decision maker's head, you might get the anger, right? You might get the resentment. You told me you deliver this and you didn't deliver that. And in order to skip past all the iterations of death and go on to the end, they're going to reach acceptance. Everybody does. In enterprise software, everybody reaches acceptance. The way you know you reached acceptance is one of two things. You have been fired, in which case you don't care anymore, or they have kept you on, in which case they have reached acceptance. Can anybody think of a third option? I'd love to hear one, seriously. So the interesting part of all this is there are people who actually understand deployment and delivery. Those people they might be in this room. You guys might be those guys, right? You're in the kind of the tech mecca of the universe. I live in Alabama, so we're not in the tech mecca of the universe. And so you probably have a better grasp on delivery, a better grasp on success of this, but maybe you don't. Maybe you work in a stage, dodgy old bank, and you're like, you got a guy, it's your boss. Maybe that guy doesn't understand delivery and deployment. And maybe he doesn't care if you don't. Whatever. People have been living with this for so long that mediocrity in the course of delivery, of software delivery, has become the norm in enterprise software development. I am not saying this is absolutely true across enterprises. Maybe you're an enterprise software developer and maybe your team kicks ass. By the way, this will be a PG show. Maybe they do. Maybe they just beat it to death every day. You never fail. You guys deliver on time just like that, just like that, just like that. If you do, congratulations. Because you are not the norm, you are an exception. And being exceptional is usually a good thing. So, how aren't you happy in the course of this? If you're one of those guys who wants to be happy, how are you not happy? Generally, you have a long delivery cycle. You go, okay, well, we're doing waterfall development. It's going to take 18 months to go get this set of features delivered to this customer set. So, at month like 14, you realize you haven't gone to QA yet. Oh my God. So you got 4 months left to QA, 14 months worth of coding. And I'm sorry, this is not going to work. It just isn't. So that delivery cycle is really long. You're not happy because successful deployments, that deployment when you finally do it, probably didn't work. Probably didn't work the first time, second time, third time, 15th time, 74th time, 75 times. You go, oh my God, I forgot to set this value. Poof, it's done. Some developer who you fired 12 months ago because he was taking too much time to do something knew that. Didn't get documented. So replicability is not a word that the Mac understands. It's a real word, I promise. Replicability is uncommon or unknown. You can do it once, but you can't do it twice. You can't make a deployment, a delivery of software 2 times in a row exactly the same way. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this because delivery of software is really effing hard. It's super complex almost all the time. Non-trivial code, pardon? Sorry, did somebody say something? You said something, I know you did. So it's just really hard to do. And so ultimately, you get this kind of like, oh, okay, well, it's almost right. Let's go in and manually fix it. Somebody backs it all out, tries it again. Doesn't work, doesn't work, doesn't work. Yeah, once again, stop me when I do something. You hear something that didn't happen to you. I don't want to do that yet. Is that it? No. Okay. So, first of all, let me disclaim this again. If these things don't apply to you, congratulations. That's all I'm going to say. No, second thing I'm going to say is if they do apply to you, you are absolutely not alone because you are exactly in the same spot that everybody I've worked for in the last 13 years at some point along the way has had a problem with. Every single one of them. The group that had 3 people and the group that had 3,000 people. You are in the same boat. Do not feel like this is you sit there and you're like, oh my God, the suck is so bad. So you get this apathy. This apathy sits in because you know you can't win. I cannot win this, so why should I even bother? And so you get this, once the apathy sets in, who cares about delivery? The truth of the matter is nobody cared about it at the beginning. You had code monkeys, code monkeying. You had ops guys sitting over there going, I'm not delivering that stuff. And you had the managers going, you must do, you must do, you must do. None of these people were really talking very well. So the third thing that you've been doing wrong is your enterprise probably does not support automation at any level. It might support it at the user creation level. And that would be enterprise user, not like user in your application. That'd be like, oh, we got a script that'll add somebody to Active Directory whenever we hire somebody new. Now, if you do, that would be better than the last 3 companies I worked at, by the way. So you might have these things that you might have a little bit of automation, but it's probably not the focus of your delivery process. So let's talk about apathy for a minute. Apathy. This is a definition. I'm going to go ahead and do this whole thing. So let's stole that from dictionary.com because that's where all definitions come from on the interwebs. So apathy says is the absence or suppression of passion, emotion, or excitement. Apathy is when you don't like it anymore. I'm not happy about doing my work anymore. I just go. I go and I sit and I do my work and I'm there at 8 and I leave at 5 and I finish out my JIRA issues and I set them in this closed state and somebody reviews them and I go home and I take my kids to soccer practice and that's what I do. I watch college football on the weekends and I have a beer on Thursdays. That's what I do. So there's also the second part of the definition, which is a lack of interest or concern for things that others find moving or exciting. I love this stuff. It excites me. Therefore, if it does not excite you, you must be apathetic, right? To a certain degree, right? I mean, not everybody, obviously. But there are people who like this kind of thing. I think it's magic because when I started writing code, my processor had 4 bits. And I typed in things with a hex pad. And I was like, this is awesome. I can make that light come on. Now it's like, oh, well, I can go to the Puppet console, look at the M Collective plugins, click this button, and stuff gets deployed and people can see it. That stuff is awesome. Passion about this is essential to the delivery process. You don't have to be all excited the way I am. Nobody should be excited about it the way I am. Plus, I've had an awful lot of rockstar recovery. So I'm kind of jacked up right now. But I will always be excited about deployment, about delivery, about automation, because the tools that make that happen are practically magical from some perspectives, right? They're like up to the They're up to who's the guy? The Clark version of magic. So I have coined this term, enterprise level apathy. This is not really trademarked. I just used the superscript thing. But anyway, you'll have a SLA for this pretty soon that's going to make it absolutely the minimum viable state for everybody. So the one thing that I think that generates the most apathy is that code is not written to be deployed and nobody cares. Software developers who write code, who are separated from the operations of deploying that code, do not care if that code can't be deployed. Do not care. Now, you might be a software developer and you go, I care. Okay, maybe you do. But I'm going to use you as a edge case, not the primary case. Because I have worked with literally thousands of software developers in the last several years. And if I can find, I have to make them into people that care. Now, I have been a bouncer for 20 years. I have been involved in one or more physical altercations. I have never had to be involved in a physical altercation at work. But occasionally, I am 6'2" and I weigh 270 pounds. So, and I'm a little forceful and people are kind of afraid of me because I do things like this. And they go, oh, he might be not exactly in the same group that I'm in. And so occasionally, you can just intimidate people into caring about something. And then as soon as they start caring about it, they realize this makes my life easier. And so you go, make a little boot, right? Another thing is that the code promotion transition is not smooth and management does not make it a priority. Generally, a project manager for software development could not care less if a piece of code is easily deliverable to the endpoint because they are not part of that process. It's like they're over here and they got some operations guy and somewhere up at the top they meet, but they don't care. It isn't part of their success criteria, right? So general apathy in enterprise software development is rampant. And it is especially rampant in a larger organization. So, if you find yourself fitting into any of these categories, once again, you are not alone. It doesn't, I mean, this is not something that you chose. I'm almost certain of it. This is something that the situation allowed you to become. If you are not apathetic, if you do care about smooth transitions, ease of delivery in the course of development, and all that sort of thing, then you are actually a fairly extraordinary human. You are not extraordinary the way I am because I am not extraordinary. I'm just a little, non-neurotypical. So what causes the apathy? We can break down the causes of enterprise level apathy into a couple of generalizations. So to simplify this discussion, let's say that motivation is the opposite of apathy, okay? If you are motivated to do something, you are not apathetic about it. And I know that's not a real definition of apathy, but bear with me, okay? So motivation is the opposite of apathy. Without a goal, it is very difficult to maintain motivation. Motivation comes from goals. You have a goal, I'm going to reach the goal. If my goal was to cross that line, then I have to, okay, I'm here. Oh, sorry, I'm in front of the screen again, right. So goals belie motivation, or goals produce motivation. Without a goal, it is extremely difficult to maintain, and motivation is frequently obtained by emotional investment in the success of an endeavor. And without a goal, the internalized definition of success is extremely difficult to place. How can you know when you're successful if you don't have a good goal, if you don't even understand your goal? Enterprise development very frequently has weird, lofty, very difficult to decipher goals. They're not really written in math. I have a statement I'm thinking about the law. If the law was written in math, we would not need lawyers. We would need mathematicians. And so it would be unambiguous. And success, the ambiguity in success in enterprise software development frequently comes from people trying to game the verbiage of the system, right? So you need clear goals to become successful and to keep your motivation, therefore. Could be also the case that you have picked an inappropriate goal. Maybe your goal isn't achievable. I want to be able to fly across this room unaided. Well, unfortunately, it appears that physics is going to stop me from doing that, so that's not really a good goal. I want to be able to be president of the United States. Well, it turns out that while I technically, legally could do that, it's really highly unlikely. You've met me already, so you know it's really unlikely that I'd make it through the vetting process. But what if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger? Right? Wasn't he governor here, right? He was governor. Can't be president. Wasn't born here. That's the rule. There's a rule that says you can't. So that's really kind of important. You make a goal, and if there's a rule that says you can't do that, that goal might be inappropriate. Maybe your goal isn't achievable because somebody placed some external boundary on what you can do. Having external boundaries on what you can do is just part of life, right? So maybe you need to pick another goal. Maybe you need to try to fix that boundary. So the third thing, it might just be powerlessness. Maybe you just can't do it. I mean, there's tons of stuff that I can't do. I'm never going to be a good UI developer because I just don't care. And I'm kind of powerless to change that because I am not visual. That's not who I am. So ultimately, in order to become a good UI developer, it would take me way more effort than I ever feel like putting in. Poof, bad goal. So that can be the case. How can you overcome apathy or, whatever? So apathy is a little bit like, might be exactly like depression, right? And without some SSRI that fixes apathy, then maybe you can't get rid of it, right? So if you feel as if your apathy might be caused by real depression, I advise you, as a human being, seek medical help. But if you don't, even if you disagree with my evaluation, it's clear that apathy has issues within corporate America. So one of the ways you combat apathy is you actually do something. Life is like a Nike commercial. If you guys remember the last set of Nike commercials before this first set of Nike commercials most recently, they had this thing that said just do it, right? So apathy can be combated by simply combating apathy. You don't want to do it, but if you just go ahead and do it, then it'll get done, and then it won't matter whether you wanted to do it or not. Kickstarting yourself to do that, it can be hard. I'm not gonna call it easy. So you can change your goals. You can say, that goal is dumb. I'm not gonna be president. I'll just be governor, right? So you can do something to try to you can do incremental changes. Maybe you can't get all the way to your goal, but maybe you can get part of the way to your goal, and that will give you a view on a new goal. Like, for instance, I don't know, enterprise automation. You can extract yourself from negative groupthink. This is really terribly important. If you work in a group with, say, I don't know, 15 guys, you guys have been working on this project for about 12 months or so, you're all Java developers, and you're all like, yeah, these requirements are really stupid, I'm gonna go ahead and do them anyway, and they're not gonna be okay, and nobody's gonna accept it. The negativity associated with certain forms of groupthink actually just keeps reinforcing itself. It's like a little echo chamber you're in. Shake it off. Get out of that group. You don't have to fire all your friends or your coworkers, but don't become part of the problem. Don't remain part of the problem. Don't remain apathetic. So another problem is lack of focus on delivery. Enterprises simply don't have this. Delivery includes all parts of the SDLC. It is literally everything. Everything. Delivery means there is no product, there is a product. And that means that everything that happens between A and B is really delivery. So it encompasses the entirety of the cycle. Without it, there would be no software. Focus on delivery is absolutely not common. Focus on feature generation is extremely common in software development. Oh, our software doesn't have feature from boss, let's make it. Well, okay, big deal. That doesn't mean it makes it right. So without delivery, there is absolutely no software. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. This phrase that says, elegant is unfortunately often a synonym for unintelligible or just plain crazy. I used to work with a really, really brilliant guy. He was actually brilliant. I mean, like in a really kind of way. And this guy wrote his code in a way that he called elegant. Now, everybody has a different view of what that means. Everybody. It's like, beautiful or something like that. Talk about writing beautiful code, elegant code, some kind of thing code. So this guy had this habit. He felt like elegant code was the smallest possible number of characters in a source file that you could use to make the thing happen. So it had absolutely no formatting. It had no comments. It was all slammed to the left. This is all C code, by the way. This is like 20-some years ago. And it was all slammed to the left, and if you cracked it open, God help you. Because you're like, So you'd have to run it through some C beautifier just to see if, if the thing actually, if it had a compile problem. You had to run through a C beautifier to see if it just puke, right? So the issue with his elegance is his version of elegance did not map to something that was actually usable by the rest of the world. So another issue with not focusing on delivery is that if you're not focusing on delivery, you're not focusing on the next delivery. You're not going to have to do one, you're going to have to do two, where two is one more than you're doing right now. If you deliver a piece of software, there's a really good chance it's going to have to be delivered again and again and again and again and again. And if it's hard to do it the first time, it's probably going to be hard to do it the second time. So delivery, and especially easy delivery, is an essential part of testing practically every kind of code. In order to get once you get past the very basic unit test kind of capabilities, your code eventually has to be deployed. It has to be delivered to some running environment in order to do real testing, like integration testing, smoke testing, blah, 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 blah. Everything past unit tests. So delivery is absolutely essential. How do we focus on delivery? Well, so this is my view. SLAs for everybody. Every single person in the SDLC. Every one of them. Management, QA, analysis, development, ops, everybody. Define what success means to everybody at some point. You don't have to do it immediately. You don't have to do it first. It has to be done really soon. Otherwise, you'll slip away. This is one of my views. I think that SLAs, they can even just be verbal. They don't have to be like written in paper and signed with blood and notarized and stuff like that. It's just a conversational agreement. If I deliver you software, then if it requires more than 2 humans and 28 hours in order to do, that software is broken. Well, okay, right on. So the other way you can do is automate upgrades. The redelivery process is actually kind of interesting, because frequently there are an awful lot of changes that go that software goes through in redelivery. You get a database definition change, something like that. There are probably a half a dozen products that I've worked with in the last several years who handle this well. They have database like Liquibase or something like that, or Rails migrations built into them or something like that. So they know what their database should look like at a given moment. If it doesn't look like that and I deploy this code, well, it just goes and fixes it. That sort of thing takes hours and hours off of humans, because you're usually handing something to a guy who really doesn't understand, or maybe doesn't understand, why a DDL change has to be made, or in some other infrastructure. So if you bake all your infrastructure into as code, and your infrastructure code understands about migration, poof, big win. So another thing that I believe very strongly that a lot of other people probably don't is I believe very, very strongly in starting from known quantities. In my opinion, in my very, very strong opinion, when you're installing RHEL, at base is it. Do anybody know what that means? At base is the base group. When you install RHEL, it's like SSH and networking and shells and yum, and that's it. Nothing else. Because then you know what you've got. I was in a rather heated discussion with somebody a few days ago about how crappy it is the way that Linux distributions treat people. I was like, what the heck is he talking about? He's like, oh, they never let us move forward in code and blah, 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 blah. Like, really? You mean you got like fixed time moments in time so people can actually work against it? Really? That's a terrible thing. You're right. I'm weirdo. So having a known quantity to work yourself against, a set of packages that are absolutely, and this is where they are, right here. This is what we installed. Oh, we're going to go and upgrade? All right. This set of packages, now that's the new norm. It becomes the new black. Start from known quantities. This means, in my opinion, for certain kinds of app servers or certain kinds of runtime environments, starting from a delivery that does not come from you. I do an awful lot of delivery to JBoss. It's just one of the things that I end up doing, I'm involved in. And there's the concept of something in JBoss that I refer to as the Franken server. You have you downloaded JBoss, or you've got a JBoss installed, and you're like, oh, this version of Hibernate sucks. Throw this out. We're putting our own version of Hibernate in. I don't like this CGlib. It breaks everything. Throw it out. Put the new one in. There are actually products that force you to do this. I get it. I understand. If you're using those products, it's probably a mistake, but whatever. So you got these and now it's a Franken server. Now it's something that you've assembled from parts. Sure, maybe it'll get up and it might come around and kill you too. And villagers will have to rise up with pitchforks and torches. So if the development of something starts from a known quantity and does not change from that quantity unless it has to, is forced to, then you know where a baseline exists. It's easy to make baseline evaluations. This is something that other people don't really agree with me about, but I think it's a kind of an interesting element of what I consider to be agile development. Feature-poor code that delivers always beats feature-rich code that does not. Always. You don't have feature X in your code? So, does it run? Does it do other stuff that I want? Awesome. You know, do I need that feature X? Well, heck yeah, I want it. But if you can't deliver it to me, well, I don't need it that bad then, do I? Getting back to it. If you don't deliver it, it doesn't exist. So, anything that impedes the final delivery of a piece of code, and that means to whoever's using it, is a bad thing. And a bad thing in the larger context, as in, you know, bad things. There are non-delivery concerns. I get this. I'm a consultant. I don't make hardly any of the rules that I have to follow. Almost none of them. I'm just really opinionated, and I go in and I say these things, and people go, no, you have to do it like this, and I'm like, okay. Because I'm just like anybody else. I have my job, I have to do it. I can't, you know, there's a maximum distance that I can push the envelope before somebody calls the police. So there are non-delivery concerns. PCI compliance is one that's kind of big. People know what that is. Right? Anybody not know what PCI compliance is? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not an auditability thing. But you know, there's a huge pile of rules. And if you don't follow those rules, well, your software can't go. It's a requirement. So maybe I had an extra push there. The final thing that I think is people do wrong is that they lack support for automation. I think that the leadership support is absolutely essential. Tool support, absolutely essential. You have to pick tools that allow you to automate. You have to have people that want you to automate. Training for automation tools, training conceptually for automation is actually kind of difficult. Lots and lots of software developers don't understand why you would want to do something automatically rather than manually. I know that when I say that, you don't believe me, but I have spoken to a human in the last 5 days who said those exact words to me. And it's not like these aren't dumb people. These are, in some cases, really good at what they do, software developers. They just don't care about anything past the part where they're working on. Now, how do we increase automation support? Well, you're here, right? Everybody more or less knows what Puppet does, right? Okay, so Puppet support was one of the pieces of automation support that I think you can use. Use tools to capture infrastructure configurations. You do not have to capture every single thing, but if you can, you should. Everything, control everything that you can and let everything else go. And then you can attack the problem in the area of unknowns. Having a unified environment is super, super important. Collect time and success metrics. Be accurate about how long it really takes you to do something. If you're in the course of doing a delivery and somebody, you know, let's say you're the ops guy, which is usually the role that I find myself in, is enabling ops. So builds over here and they're sending me stuff and it drops in my lap and that's when the timer goes off. I don't care how long it takes them to build. Not right now. I do, but I don't care right now. As soon as it hits my plate, I care. How long does this take me to do? 24 hours. I go to somebody's manager and I'm like, it takes 24 hours. Now, some managers might look to you and go, 24 hours, are you insane? Oh my God, let's fix this. Probably not. Because managerial support for automation tends to be kind of so-so. They probably go, takes you 24 hours, huh? Used to take the last guy 48. Yeah, heard that pretty recently too. So there's one other thing that I think is super, super important. Now, ultimately speaking, I'm not really a Puppet guy. I'm not. I mean, I'm a Puppet certified, Puppet certified professional or whatever. I passed the test, which by the way is not the easiest thing in the universe. But I passed the test, and I'm a Puppet consultant. That's primarily what my job is. But at the bottom level, I'm a build pipeline guy. I'm a build dude. I like it from the beginning to the end, not from halfway through or anything like that. And having good build management is absolutely essential to a delivery pipeline. Anybody who has not read Continuous Delivery in this room, Jazz Humble and Dave, what's his name, whatever, that book is, and probably, I don't know, I haven't read the Phoenix Project, but whatever, probably the same thing. Read these things and understand that delivery is a holistic process. It's big. And one essential element of software development and delivery is the build process. If your build process is manual and dumb, and I can tell you a really couple of serious horror stories about bad build processes, then if it's manual and dumb, you can't do good pipeline delivery. Now, okay. Everybody's seen some of these, right? Start from the top. Find yourself a champion. Start small and deliver incrementally. Continually refactor your process and keep it current. All right, so I don't disagree with this, but I have a slightly different view. Start from the bottom. Your manager probably initially, the manager of any given project probably doesn't care. So go find somebody who is responsible for an action, preferably near the beginning, maybe even a business analyst, and see if you can convince them to include automation as part of the requirement. So the other thing is, don't find a champion, hire a champion. Hire them. The way you hire a champion is you build something that somebody can defend. A champion's job is to defend something. That's the entirety, that's actually the functional definition of champion. They need to defend something. If the defense is this amorphous automation that we would like to produce, that's a pretty weak thing to defend. If you make some automation and say, here is what you can, I will use it. Chris, my old boss, I was like, Chris, I have this automation that I have done. I would like for you to support this to the larger organization. I gave him something that makes him look good. He's the guy who made automation happen. I don't care if it's me. I don't have a really good ego anyway. It's a little twisted and weird. So you hire your champion. So you've heard, don't hide your talents under a bushel. Well, maybe you do. Because sometimes you get in trouble for wasting time on automation, wasting time on improving processes, wasting time on that. So there's a word for this called skunkworks that we usually use. Hide something. I'm not saying do anything illegal, immoral, or unethical, or wrong, or whatever like that. But these things are important, and make them important to other people by making them happen first. So the other things are, like you say, start small and deliver incrementally, yeah. But think big first. See if you can figure out where you want to be. Give yourself a long goal. Give yourself a short goal, tactical goals and strategic goals. And always, this is always the truth, you must keep on top of your process. You must keep it current because it will slip away from you. Now, I have a long list of these things, right? I'm, once again, highly opinionated. This is like a really huge list. So I'm going to say some of these things, and you can disagree with them or not disagree with them, and whatever. Plan for automation from the start. Always think you're going to need to do it automatically. If you don't do that, then you are doing automation wrong. Doing it after the fact is dumb, because it is really hard to leverage automation on a non-automated process. Processes that enable but do not disable. Do not make a process, you can have process. There's a sweet spot for process. Not enough process and you have chaos. Too much process and you have stagnation. Do not let anybody deliver a process to you that disables you. Do not run without process. Seriously, I can't really even say that any other way. I believe Dan said this morning. I am a huge, huge fan of semantic versioning. Using a non-typical version, like something that means something, is really important. Like a company that I have worked with in the past used the revision number in Subversion as their version number. Truth of the matter is, that is a version number. It is. But it doesn't mean anything unless you attach some semantic value to it, right? With semantic versioning, you can do comparisons, and that is super, super important. If you don't know what semantic versions are, it's http://semver.org or something like that, S-E-M-V-E-R. I did not put that in there. Manage your source code intelligently. Do not give follow whatever the typical pattern is for the source code manager that you're using. Manage your dependencies intelligently. I believe it was Roman said this earlier. Dependency hell applies to every reasonable software project. There was this Rails Envy, you guys remember this? The videos, Rails Envy, from a couple of years ago? The guy sitting there talking about it, he's like, what you got there? And it's like, oh, got some jars and blah, 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 blah. And he was talking about how you don't have that problem in Rails. Horse malarkey. Rails just didn't have it yet because they didn't have enough dependencies yet. Everybody in software has dependency management. If you don't write it all yourself, you got dependency problems. And if you're using some kind of interpreter that you didn't write, you probably got that too. And if you're using an operating system you didn't write, you got dependencies there too. So manage your dependencies very intelligently. Define your environments as source code. This makes them replicable. Use Puppet, use Chef, use CF Engine. Use Python scripts that you wrote yourself. Who cares? Use Puppet. We're at Kappa Camp. Not only that, but in my opinion, it is kind of the best one. So define your environments as source code. Baseline environments from known states. This falls back to the whole thing about using packages and package management. Making sure that you know exactly where something starts. We start from this base. Oh, we need to move forward. Okay, well, let's make the effort to move forward. Avoid Franken systems. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Seriously, if you're the kind of guy who hacks up a piece of software to make it do what you need it to do, perhaps what you need it to do isn't really what you need to do. I'm saying that not because I believe that you are making a mistake. I believe you can do it another way where you actually make smooth transitions by not doing that. I think I put an extra pause in the thing. Seek smooth transitions. That's in the course of code promotion. From the beginning to the end. Promotion from development to QA, QA to QA2, QA3, QA, whatever, however many ranges if you have. Seek smooth transitions. I have, my knee's been reconstructed 3 times. And so I have, in the second time, they were, they did the drill and the bone and put the pin in and all that other kind of stuff. And a little tiny piece of bone came out. A chip. Apparently, at the beginning, it was so small that it was almost impossible to see. But 3 months later, it was a big spur on the inside of my knee, and boy, did that hurt. Hence, operation number 3. So anything that impedes smooth transitions eventually will grow to be a serious pain. It'll be the thing people complain about. Define SLAs for developers as well as operations. And I really honestly think you should have them for everybody. But between development and operations, it is super important. Wow, I went over. I've been over for a while. Deployment code, not deployment meat. Do not try to deploy with meat. Meat sacks are terrible deployers. Code is really good at it because it's replicable. Meat sticks, yeah. Combat apathy everywhere. Do not write and do not allow other people to write code that is hard to deploy. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I will be somewhere without a microphone on.